Hi everybody, we're going to learn how to make maple syrup. I am socially distancing, hanging out in the forest here, making some backyard maple syrup during COVID-19, and I thought I would show you how it's done. So first of all, we start with a sugar maple tree. Sugar maple trees grow in many parts of Canada, and there are lots of them around where we are. And this is what a sugar maple looks like, of course without its leaves. Because it's March, the leaves haven't started to grow yet, and that's why we can make maple syrup right now actually. But you recognize the tree by its leaves, and if I pick up a leaf off the ground, you'll see it's a maple leaf, just like on our Canadian flag. And you can recognize it because a sugar maple actually, the leaves actually look like the one on the Canadian flag. Other types of maples, like red maples, are less jagged than this, and so you can see the difference in the leaves. You can also recognize a sugar maple tree by its bark. If you look at the bark, you'll see that it's a little bit rough, and there are loose parts. And you can often, break off just a loose part of bark. Now don't go stripping trees, please, of their bark, but you can break off a really loose piece if it's just hanging off like that. So the sugar maple tree produces a type of sap, and that's what you use to make maple syrup. Sap is a liquid that runs through the tree. It runs almost through veins or pipes inside the tree, and it brings a lot of sugar up through the tree at this time of year. The reason for that is that the tree is getting ready to produce buds which turn into leaves, and it needs energy to do that. So it takes sugar that's stored in the roots of the tree and draws it up with the liquid, with the sap, up through the tree so that it can energize the buds to produce leaves for summer. Now, that sap has quite a good concentration of sugar in it, so we want to be able to access it, and this is how we do it. First, we drill a hole into the tree. I don't have a drill with me right now because we've already done this, but you drill a hole about the length of your finger into the bark, into the wood of the tree, and then you have to insert something called a spile. And this is a spile, and it looks like a little spout, and then at the back, it has like a crack that allows the sap to, whoops, dropped it, to enter in, and you can see there's a hole at the bottom of that crack on the other side, and then the sap drips through it, and I'm going to show you how this works. Now this is what the spile looks like when it's inserted into the tree, and you can see the sap dripping out of it at a regular tempo, actually, for those of you who are studying music. And if you look here, you can see the sap in the bottom of the bucket, and it just looks like water, but it doesn't taste like water. It tastes a little bit sweeter. It tastes nothing compared to maple syrup sweetness, but it's still definitely a little bit sweeter than plain water. Now you can see this is quite a big tree, so we actually have a couple of buckets and a couple of taps on this tree. When you have quite a large tree, you can put more than one on it. And you can see that we have lids over the buckets because we want to keep out bugs or anything that might fall into the sap as much as possible. So once you have the sap, you need to start to boil it down into maple syrup. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sap from the bucket. There's not very much in here because we've already emptied it today, but I'm going to take what's there and bring it up to the fire where we're boiling down the sap to turn it into syrup. So here we are at the fire where we're boiling down our sap to make maple syrup. So I've got some sap in a bucket here, and you can see that there are two pots on the fire. One has loads of sap, and if you look at the color of it, it's starting to turn the color more towards the color of maple syrup. If you look at the first little pot, it doesn't have, it has no color. It's just plain sap. So I'm going to add my sap to the first pot because it just starts by warming it up. But of course I have to have gloves on to go anywhere near this. So there we go. So I'm just going to pour into the small pot, and then our fresh sap can start to warm up And then as it warms up, we'll add it to the pot that's boiling and turning into maple syrup. So as it boils, the water evaporates and the sugars stay. I'm too close to the fire here, it's pretty warm. So the sugars stay behind, and so that's how we end up with a sweet, sweet maple syrup. And it takes 40 liters of sap to make 1 liter of syrup. So you can imagine how many buckets we have to carry up to this fire. But boy, oh boy, our pancakes are going to be delicious tomorrow morning. Have a good day, everybody.